get me here too late for these things, you know. They said there's going to be good dessert and food, and now you all ate, and I never get here on time. Oh, tell you. Yeah, and I understand, and I thought I was going to be the oldest one here. But somebody told me that he's almost 91. I just turned 90. And I was so proud of being the oldest one here. But, you know.
They're going to cut off my Social Security, they said.
Oh, yeah? Yeah. But they cut mine off a long time ago. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I tell ya, it's getting a little hot in here. Oh, you know, they talk about that global warming. You women know that's the hot flashes here. We started that global warming. There ain't nothing else but these hot flashes here. Oh, I just can't have that on anymore. And this cane, my kids thought I needed this cane. I don't need this cane. I can kick them up just as good as anybody else. Yeah. And you got to excuse me for wearing my slippers here today because I was waiting and waiting to get picked up there, you know. I have a home over there in Denmark, you know. And he picked me up, and then I forgot my shoes because I have my boots on because, you know, there's snow out there, you know. But it's a good thing that I always keep my slippers in the purse, you know. Then I can wear my slippers for that stuff. But you know, they asked me to come here and talk, and they said, would you like to come and talk to the lions? I said, no, I don't talk to the animals. I've been very strange, but don't talk to the animals. Well, they said it's not really the animals, it's people who call themselves lions. And I went, that even sounds stranger to me. But they said it's like a club, you know. I said, well, why didn't you just tell me I'd come and talk to a club? I didn't know that. And then I thought, well, what could I talk to you about? And then I thought, I can tell you about my Ole. Boy, everybody knew my Ole, I'll tell you that. We were married for over 50 years. He died there now, you know, but that's why the kids, they put me in a home. But I told them what to do there, you know. I'll tell you, Ole and I, we come from Minnesota, way up there in the upper part of Minnesota. You know, where they get all them bad storms up there all the time. We met where we were working. And Ole would take me out on a date. Every Friday night, Ole would pick me up and we'd go to Fleet Farm. And we'd go there just to smell the tires. And I said to Ole after we went there day after day after day, I said, why don't we go over there to that new Mall of America? They got lots of stores there. Ole says, if they don't got it at Fleet Farm, we don't need it. Well, then one Saturday night, Ole called me up on the telephone, and he said, hey, Lena, how'd you like to be buried in the family plot there, huh? Well, he's about as romantic as the gravel in the parking lot. But so we got married, and we lived up there in the upper part of Minnesota, and they had bad storms up there. Oh, in the wintertime, we would get snow after snow after snow. That one winter was so bad. We had the radio on to listen to the weather, and the weatherman said, a bad storm coming in. He said, it's really bad, so you better park your cars on the even side of the road tonight. So I said, Ole, did you hear that? Ole said, yeah, I've got to park the car on the even side of the road. Well, it wasn't but a few days later, another big storm was going to be coming through there. So we put the radio on, and the guy on the radio says, bad storm coming. You got to park your car on the odd side of the road now. I said, Ole, did you hear that? Ole said, yeah, we'll park the car on the odd side of the road. Well, it wasn't about a week later. The radio came, we had the radio on, and they said, the biggest storm Minnesota has ever seen. It's coming true. And I want you people to park your car. And the power went out. I said, Ole, now we don't know where we're to park our car. Well, Ole said, then we'll just leave it in the garage for tonight. Then in the summertime, you know, they get lots of rain up there too. You know, Minnesota, all them lakes there, well, that's where all that comes from. And that one summer it rained for days and days and days. So it was raining so much and the rain was just coming up and up and up. So my neighbor lady and I, we climb up on the roof there, you know. And that neighbor lady's looking down and she said, "You see that down there, Lena? I see this baseball cap. It's a floating this way, and then it floats back that way, and then it floats back that way." I said, "Oh, don't worry about it, that's Ole." I told him he had to get that lawn cut come hell or high water. Well, then we decided we'd get out of there. We moved to Denmark over here, you know. I had some relatives that lived there, and we've been there in Denmark, but we had to go and get a job, you know, because we had to get some money. So we went and we applied for this job, and first the guy talks to me, and I said, "Yeah, we need a job." And he said, "Well, what are your qualifications?" I said, "Qualifications?" He said, "Yeah, what did you do before you came here?" I said, "I sewed elastic into women's underwear." "Oh," he said, "I don't think we got the job for you." So then he talked to Ole. And Ole said, he said, "Well, Ole," he said, "what are your qualifications?" Ole says, "Qualifications?" I said, "Yeah, what did you do when you worked at your other place?" He said, "I was a diesel fitter." "Oh," he said, "we can find a job for you real easy." I said, "Wait a minute here," I said. "You're gonna give Ole a job, but not me?" I sat for hours just sewing that elastic in the women's underwear. And all Ole ever did was put him over his head and say, "Diesel fitter." So then we decided we would buy a farm. So we bought a little farm right outside of Denmark, 50 acres out the back, you know. But I didn't know that Ole couldn't do nothing without me. I always had to be there to help him. He couldn't do the chores, he couldn't do anything without me there with him. If we were out in the field making the fences, you know, he'd tell me, he said, "Now pull hard, it'll come easy." Well, how the hell did I know what that was? And then I'd have to get up on the tractor and he'd say, "Straight ahead now, back her up." Well, that's pretty confusing too, you know. But I said to Ole, "I got to help you out there at the chores all the time. Why don't you help me?" "No, that's a woman's work, and the house is woman's work, you know." So every night he'd come in for supper. He'd have to have his supper. He'd sit down and eat the supper, and then he'd push himself back, and he'd say, "Hey, Lena, get me my coffee and my ginger snaps." Every night he had his cup of coffee and his ginger snaps. And then he'd say, "Well, I guess I got to go see a man about a horse." Well, my kids never got that horse. We joined this little church down in the country, a little country church down there. And one day we were going into church and somebody said, "Hey, Ole's got his barn door open." And I thought, how does she know our barn door is open? It's 5 miles down the road. Well, then I joined the ladies group. You go to the ladies' houses for the Bible study and you sit in the living room around the card tables, you know, and you have your cake and your coffee. There was another new lady that was joining too, and she got up to go to the toilet. A toilet in the house! I could not believe that. That lady I was in the city, you know. And she got up to go and somebody said, "I think that new Mrs. Johnson's got a bun in the oven." And I thought, if she's got a bun in the oven, what is she doing here? And if she's going to bake a bun, why don't she bake a dozen or so? You know, it's hard work with that bakery. Well, then, we always had these potlucks at our church. There was always potlucks. You bring the casserole and the red jello with the white stuff on top. And you percolate the coffee with the raw egg in it, you know. And they're always deciding who's going to take home the dirty dish towels. Well, you never saw the minister's wife in there working. Oh, no, no. But that new Mrs. Johnson, she said, "I'll take the dish towels home. I got a load of diapers to do anyway." One night we was laying in bed. The telephone rang. I had to get out of bed, go to the kitchen to answer, because Ole wouldn't get out of bed. I got out of bed to go answer the telephone, and I came back to bed, and Ole said, "Who was that?" I said, "I don't know who it was, but it was a woman. She wanted to know if the coast was clear, And I said, how the hell do I know? It's 1,000 miles away. Ole got a letter in the mail from the judge. He had to go and appear before the judge. I thought I better go along because Ole won't get anything right. So he goes before the judge, and the judge said, hey, Ole, did you steal a can of peaches from the Red Owl? Yeah, Ole said, I did. Well, how many peaches were in there? Oh, Ole says 5. Well, he said, then that's 5 days in jail. And I wasn't going to let him get away with anything. I said, Ole, tell him about the can of peas you stole too. So then I decided, I think we're going to go and see a lawyer about a divorce. I had enough of that. So we went to the lawyer, and the lawyer says, well, he said, have you got grounds? We got grounds. We got 50 acres out in the back. Well, he said, do you have a grudge? We got 2 grudges. I got one for the car and one for the tractor. Oh, he says, does he beat you up? He beat me up every morning. He get up at 5. I don't get up till 6. So then we really weren't getting along real good, and Ole said, it was on a Sunday afternoon, and Ole wanted me to go in the barn and help him with some chores. I said, I don't work on Sunday. Well, what do you want to do? He said. I said, well, you buy that new car. Why don't you take me for a ride? Okay, he said. So we get in the car, and of course, Ole ain't talking to Lena, and Lena ain't talking to Ole. And we're riding down this old country road, and we come across this old farm. And there was a bunch of goats and pigs all around there. Ole says to me, that relatives of yours? I said, yeah, in-laws. Well, Ole had these 2 friends, Lars and Stanley. And if Lars and Stanley weren't with Ole, Ole was with Lars and Stanley. And they were the best of buddies. They ice fished and they fished and they did everything together. They were always together. Well, one day they were going to go ice fishing. And so they got all their stuff together, and they're getting out there and they're ice fishing, and they drilled a big hole in there, and they hear, there's no fish in here. Oh, they look around. Well, they grab all their stuff. They move down a little further. They drill another hole in there, and they hear, there's no fish in here. Oh, okay. So they go down a little ways further, drill a hole again. He hears this again. There's no fish in here. Ole said, is that you, God? No, this is the maintenance man at the ice rink. There's no fish in here. Well, then that one day, Stanley was in a really bad accident. It was so bad that you couldn't recognize him. So the undertaker calls up Lars and Ole and said, you got to come here. He said, we think this is Stanley, but we're not sure. So Lars goes in there and says, oh, no, I don't know if that's Stanley. They said, but roll him over. So he rolled him over, and he said, no, that's not Stanley. So then Ole goes in there and says, oh my gosh, he really burned bad. He really was bad accident. I don't know if that's Stanley, but roll him over. So he rolls him over, and he goes, no, that's not Stanley. Well, they said, how do you know that's not Stanley when I roll him over? Well, Ole says, whenever Stanley and Lars and I go into a tavern or wherever we go, everybody says, oh, here comes Stanley with them 2 assholes. Well, then we were married for 50 years, And we had our 50th wedding anniversary, and I said, Ole, we've been married now for 50 years, and never once did you tell me that you love me. He said, I told you that the day we got married. If I changed my mind, I'd have let you know. So then I says to Ole, I said, you know what we should do? We should eat our breakfast in the nude like we did on our anniversary or on our honeymoon. Ole said he didn't care. So we had breakfast the next morning in the nude, and we're sitting there, and I'm going, oh, this is so romantic. I'm just feeling such a tingling. And Ole said, well, you oughta, you got one boob in the oatmeal and the other one in the coffee. So you know what they had to do to put up with Ole. But then Ole died. And so I thought, well, I should go put something in the paper about Ole dying. So I went up there to the Denmark Press and I said, just put in there Ole died. Well, he said, you can have 5 words for the same price as 2. I said, well, then put in there Ole died, boat for sale. So now, once Ole died, and the kids said I couldn't run that farm by myself anymore. I don't know why I ran the damn thing all them years by myself. They thought their dad was doing something, yeah, right. So they put me in the home, and talking about that, they told me they were going to pick me up here now again, so I guess it's time I got to go back to the home. But it's been nice here talking to you, and I don't know about this dinner. You know, I don't mind missing the dinner, but I sure mind missing them desserts. I get they had some good ones here. I think I'll stop at the kitchen and see if I can get some of them desserts. So it's been good talking to you, and especially this little man here. I think we should have our picture took together, right? Picture book.